Hello and welcome to the Capital Games Podcast. I am the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Zero. My God, man, we have at least 1 week. We have 5 days until Christmas. We record this on a Tuesday. We have 5 days for Christmas. Are you excited? Are you ready for Santa to come down the chimney? Yeah?
I wish. I'm unfortunately a little broke due to a personal situation, so the most I can hope for is a lump of coal at this point.
Yeah, I've been for the movie podcast. I've been watching Christmas movies. Essentially, I'm shocked by a lot of movies that don't really feel Christmassy that are actually considered Christmas movies. The way I've been looking at Christmas movies to watch is I've been going through a bunch of lists to decide on what are the best Christmas movies, and I swear, like half of them, I would not consider Christmas movies. Of course, we have what's one? Die Hard. Die Hard is, for some reason, for the past 10 years, there's been a push to make that a Christmas movie, which I'm like, no. Just because it's set in Christmas does not make it a Christmas movie. That's ridiculous. But not a lot of Christmas games, though. Am I right?
Yeah, not that I can really think of. There's nothing that immediately screams to me, yep, this game just radiates Christmas.
Yeah, like, I think, was it Costume Quest 2 was set in Christmas? Am I right on that?
I know. So. It's been years.
Yeah, same. Like, I remember Costume Quest 1, and that was pretty fun, but 2, I think, was set in Christmas. Yeah, it's weird. What do you guys think out there is considered a Christmas game? Let us know, or if you think there is, or if you even have an idea of a Christmas game. Let us know. It would be interesting to see if the industry starts doing that. Of course, the way this industry works, they'll delay the game till March, so it may not be that great of an idea. But yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so why don't we get into some of the things that happened this week? But before we get into news, Zero, you've been playing a game that was released late last month, but I think just started getting playable this past month. This month, what have you been playing this week?
Been putting a lot of time into Warhammer 40k Darktide, since it's free on Xbox Game Pass and everything. Mm-hmm. If you are a fan of Vermintide, this is just more of that, but in the sci-fi realm of Warhammer 40k. So if you're kind of into the whole grimdark aesthetic, then this will have just loads of that for you, especially from sort of like the grimdark style, like dialogue that and quotes that you see on the loading screens, to just fighting against all sorts of chaos agents that their heads are just infected with maggots and stuff when you hack them open with like a chainsaw sword and stuff like that. It's a lot of gory fun, but it does have its fair share of issues as well too.
Is there still performance issues and stability issues in the game?
Game is extremely demanding on resources and everything, because I don't know why, and this was this is a problem that I also noticed on Vermintide as well too. For some reason, the loading screens will require GPU usage.
What?
And yeah, I'll see my GPU spike to like 99% of the GPU being used, and then shoot back down to like something low, like 20%. So just really unusually high GPU usage in some really weird times. But I think really the big glaring problem that most people feel is the elephant in the room is the fact that the Xbox Game Pass version and the Steam version are not cross-play compatible. So basically, if you were to play it for free on Game Pass, but you've got a friend who was just like, well, I bought it on Steam because I had some Steam credit. Yeah, technically you two can't even matchmake together.
Yeah.
Fat Shark did mention this on a giant fact post that they put on the Steam version page of Darktide on questions asking about crossplay. They're like, no, it will not be available at launch, but we will be trying to work as quickly as we can to get this feature implemented. What that means, or as far as a date, nobody on Earth knows.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so yeah, that's been a bit of an annoyance because I believe I have a few friends who've already purchased it on Steam, and knowing that technically I wouldn't be able to party up with them is a little bit of an annoyance.
That does sound annoying. I'm looking at the requirements right now. I'm looking at recommended. Recommended graphics card, an RTX 3060 or a Radeon RX 5700 XT, an Intel i7 9700K. Good lord. Like, these are beefy requirements. The graphics card is about a generation old, which is, I think, about what, 2 or 3 years. How long was the RTX 3060 out? Was it a year or two?
I believe so.
Yeah. And then the i7 9700K is a processor that was, we're at the 1100s right now, or 11,000.
No, 13. We're at the
Good
13th
lord.
generation.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm way off. Still pretty beefy. With the recommended specs being that, are the graphics really good? Does it play really smooth, or is there a reason for this game to be that technically demanding?
I can't honestly say, mostly because I'm running on a 7th gen Core i7
Right.
with a GTX 1080. So for me, I'm running the game on medium settings, but even on medium, just there is very heavy GPU usage. So it's just kind of one of those things that just has me sort of scratching my head going, what on earth is going on? But yeah, no idea.
But do you see anything? Is there anything that you could, I guess, glean from it? Since you don't have a really beefy system, is there something you can glean from the gameplay that makes you understand why it needs that kind of technical specs?
My guess is for the big mob rushes that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's where just a lot of the graphical horsepower is required, because just every once in a while, I mean, it's just like Left 4 Dead, that you'll have moments where just it might be an ambush and you'll just have just tons of Chaos Disciples just bum rushing the hell out of you and your team. And of course, just when that happens, combat gets frenetic, because usually when these bum rushes happen, typically using your firearm is kind of useless unless you have a firearm that just unloads at a very high rate of fire, because at that point you're better off just using your melee weapon and just slashing and smashing through these hordes. So maybe that's where things get a little crazy too. And then I know some of the enemies also have some real crazy effects. The big one being the Tox Flamer, which basically shoots a flamethrower that's got some sort of toxic quality to the fire that makes it glow like a toxic green. So maybe the real-time flame effect generation is also causing issues too. Again, I'm not too sure on it because my system is pretty much an antique at this point.
Do you think because I have a fairly limited to now a limited system myself, do you think maybe it would be better to play it on the Xbox Series X, or what are your thoughts on that?
Currently, the game is not available on Xbox. It's just a PC only thing.
Oh, God, that's right.
I believe Fat Shark said that they are working on some console ports, and potentially that means that if they do produce some console ports, it could just be like Vermintide 2, where it's only available on Xbox, or we could see a situation where they want to get all the sales that they possibly can, and it might arrive both on Xbox Series X and PS5. There's no telling.
When Left 4 Dead became the big or Left 4 Dead 2 as well became like the big games, I think it was down back in, God, was it 2010, 2011? Am I right? Am I right on that?
Yeah. I want to say Left 4 Dead 2 came out back in 2010.
Okay. Like, I remember them being insanely popular because mainly, well, the gameplay, of course, but the achievements. And since I wasn't really a big achievement person, there really wasn't anything to make me strive for something. Which is why I liked Vermintide 2 so much, because yes, you have the same gameplay loops over and over again, but the thing to build up is to get better gear. and to get a better power ranking as you play the game. What is the thing that Darktide does that makes you want to go forward to do more and more runs? Is it the same thing as Vermintide, or do they do different things?
One element is the same as Vermintide, that you're constantly trying to get better loot to increase your gear score. And as you increase your gear score, you're doing more DPS, which means you can end up slaughtering through SWATs of much more beefier enemies in the higher difficulties. And unlike in Vermintide 2 rather, missions do have difficulty levels. So like the lowest difficulty level is just going to be the basic mission objective. So it might be an espionage mission where you're trying to sneak into one of the Tertium Hive City bases to get a satellite uplink to transmit information to the Imperium of Man. And that might be the only objective on like the easy difficulty, which is like a rank 1. And then when you get into like the rank 2 and rank 3s, that's where you get like the secondary optional objectives that are added in. So it might be something like find 5 grimoires hidden within the map to get like an extra bonus of XP and cash credits to buy better weapons and better gear. And on top of that, there's also a purification sort of mechanic where you can have your weapons consecrated and basically ranked up. So you have tainted weapons, which are kind of like your common grade weapons, and then you have your consecrated weapons, which are kind of like your uncommon rank weapons, and they're colored green for that. Mm-hmm. And then you can upgrade a consecrated weapon into a relic weapon, which is like a blue rare colored one, and it gains additional perks from that. And then I believe from rare you can go to epic, which is the purple color, and then from epic to legendary. So there's an upgrade path to bump your weapons up. So you'll want to play missions to grind out for those credits to do the consecrations and everything. So that's another grind treadmill to get on. And then lastly, kind of taking a note from Vermintide 2, you also have weekly missions. The thing with the weekly missions is you can't access them until your character hits level 11. And then once they hit level 11, then the weekly missions will unlock. And the weekly missions also take a bit from Destiny 2 because they'll give you a special different type of credit, which can be used on the vendor who offers you the special weekly missions. And they will sell, in particular, weapons that can only be bought from this store. And the weapons are typically graded at epic grade and colored in purple. So some of these weapons are pretty strong. So naturally, just if you want some of these cool weapons, then you're going to want to try to bang out the weekly objective so you get the most out of the credits and everything.
I guess the main question I have to ask is this just a reskinned Vermintide 2? Or are there enough differences to where if you're really into Vermintide 2, you'd want to check out Darktide?
I think really the big difference is the fact that you do have actual sci-fi grade firearms. It's not like some of the firearm-like weapons in Vermintide 2, where you might get like one shot out of this like blunderbuss, and then you have to reload the blunderbuss in a very slow way. This has like the usual sort of Warhammer 40k weapons. So you've got laser rifles, you've got infantry rifles, you've got fully automatic pistols as well too. So just weapons that have an actual sizable magazine that you can use. You can use firearms for most of the mission, and then when the hordes come, then you can switch to your melee weapon and just start going to town on that. Whereas Vermintide, the combat is mostly going to be melee, just due to the nature of the weapons and everything. And ranged weapons in Vermintide 2 are mostly for just sort of like circumstantial situations, like if you're trying to get one of these special enemies that's at a distance and trying to pick them off before they kind of outflank you and just gank you at that point for not paying attention. I think that's where a lot of the difference is, the fact that you can use firearms for most of the mission, and the melee is just kind of there for very up close and personal situations. Whereas in Vermintide 2, it was completely the opposite, where just most of the killing is definitely going to be melee range, and then just ranged weapons will mostly be relegated to doing stuff like picking off just not swats of enemies, but picking off the occasional enemy that's just kind of trying to skulk around and flank your team and everything.
I guess the question I have with this game, because this is a game I'm also interested in, but I do have Vermintide 2, and I really like this game. Is there a reason right now to get off of Vermintide 2 and to jump into Darktide if you are really into Vermintide 2? Like, if you are still into grinding those characters and getting the best gear in that game, would you recommend somebody to forget all their progress on Vermintide 2 and just jump into Darktide? Or what does Darktide have to do in order to get those players out of Vermintide 2?
I think really the bigger question is going to be whether you prefer the setting of Warhammer Fantasy, or if you're more into the sci-fi sort of setting that Warhammer 40k has going for it, and Darktide being based in the Warhammer 40k universe.
So basically, you think that the reason why this game is made was because they want to cater to a different audience, but with the same flavor of gameplay.
Yeah, that's personally my take on it.
Okay. This is $30 right now, but on Game Pass. Am I correct on that?
40 for the standard edition, and then I think it's 60 for the Imperial edition, and that gives you stuff like some bonus outfits for all 4 characters. You get a special portrait frame for your profile. You get a backpack cosmetic that looks a little bit neat, and then they give you 2,500 Aquillas, which is the premium currency, and the Aquillas are mostly used for just cosmetic stuff. So if you want to change your character up to be themed like a legendary personality in the Warhammer 40k universe, then basically you'll be using your Aquillas to go to the cash shop and basically say, I want to buy this skin set for this much, or hey, I want to get a custom skin for one of my favorite guns in the game, or something like that.
Would you recommend the game?
If you kind of like Left 4 Dead combat, but didn't really like Vermintide 2 being more melee focused, then yeah, Darktide is probably going to be something I would probably recommend. If you're one of those that really wants to be able to play with your friends, be it on any platform, I would say wait a bit until they finally get the logistics for cross-platform play solved, because that's something I can understand most people holding off on the purchase, because just the fact that the Xbox Game Pass version on PC can only play with just anyone who's playing the Windows PC Store version of it is kind of annoying, especially if most of your friends have already bought it on Steam. Then just a little bit annoying, and even more so the fact that you can link your Xbox account with the Fat Shark account management system, and I believe you can do the same with Steam, but I don't know if that means eventually cross progression will also be a feature that will be added, because I know potentially if I do end up getting the game later on Steam, there is certainly a chance that I could lose all of my progress that I'm working on now on Xbox Game Pass, which would be a bit of an annoyance.
That's pretty lame. That sucks. Aside from some technical issues and the fact that the progression isn't available, you would recommend this, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially if you're kind of into the Left 4 Dead style gameplay. And what's neat about the game is the game definitely encourages you to stick together with your crew, especially because the closer that you and your teammates stick together, you'll get a party-wide bonus that applies to everyone. So it's definitely one of those games that definitely encourages you to stick together, and wandering off alone is definitely discouraged, because I can't tell you how many times that I have gotten into a random lobby and just somebody ends up just going against the game's advice and goes, well, I want to go look around and see if there's extra loot and shit. And then, sure enough, because they decide to separate themselves from the rest of the group, they get ganked. We, the rest of the team, have to go back, save them from being ganked, and then kill the monster that's still skulking around and everything. That's one piece of advice that I would just mention to people. Just, yeah, if you're playing the game online with like random people or with friends, stick close together, because the game will give you a damage bonus for it, and also you can watch each other's backs so you don't get ganked by a random special enemy.
If you're a fan of Vermintide 2 and you prefer the sci-fi setting, give it a shot. There are issues and there are inconveniences, but still worth a try. It is available on PC at Steam and on Microsoft. There's Xbox Game Pass that's available on. And we have no word on consoles at this. They are announced, but we have no idea when they're coming. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's $40 for Warhammer 40k Darktide. Zero cautiously recommends it. Would that be fair?
Yeah. I would say if you're a Game Pass subscriber, just check it out. Just download it and check it out.
Okay. Go ahead and check out Warhammer 40k Darktide on PC. All right, so we'll move on to the news this week. Another light week, but we have a heavy hitter that happened yesterday on Monday, and that is that out of nowhere, Epic Games decided to pay a $520 million fine to the FTC. I believe this is the largest fine the FTC has ever received. Am I right on that?
Yeah, so it is quite historic.
Right. And they are paying this because they broke, is it a law? Or they had a bunch of COPA violations. And that is, COPA is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Already right there, that's a big deal that they violated the COPA Act of all things. And what it looks like is the total fine is $520 million. So it's over $500 million in two separate record-breaking settlements. So these together, they're record-breaking, but also separately, they're record-breaking. The FTC said Epic will pay $275 million in a penalty for violating the COPA Act and $245 million to refund customers tricked into making unwanted charges. $520 million. Jesus Christ. The complaint alleged that they were collecting personal information from children under the age of 13. Now, technically, these companies are allowed to do that, but they need permission from the guardian in order to do that. And apparently they never gave permission. They were collecting information on these kids who play Fortnite, a game that is riddled with kids under the age of 13. Zero, what are your thoughts on Epic Games getting caught and having to pay this fine to the FTC?
It's a bit interesting, especially because when you go through the FTC's little PR release about this, apparently both Epic employees and customers to the Epic Game Store had made complaints about just a lot of the issues that were mentioned on this lawsuit, like the COPA violations, the default settings in Fortnite that immediately opt kids into both text and voice chat in the game. Mm-hmm. The really strange use of illegal dark patterns, basically that did stuff that essentially sort of gatewayed people into the stores. So things like if a kid went to like the buy V-Bucks area, there wasn't like a confirmation prompt to say, hey, are you sure you want to buy $100 in V-Bucks? It was just kind of a, hi, here's how you buy V-Bucks. Here's the low package and here's the high package. Which package would you like? And then on immediately pressing one of those buttons, just boom, transaction done. And then in the dark patterns issues as well too, you also had situations like if someone wanted to preview a skin, if they clicked on it, it would automatically purchase the skin. There was no confirmation prompt to say, hey there, are you sure you want to purchase the skin? It was just kind of a, if you clicked on it, boom, you bought it. Hey, how about that? So that was pretty bad too. And really, really, really bad point is that this also leads to is if a parent discovered that their kid just went on kind of a V-Buck buying spree and then just went absolutely hog wild, if the parent tried to request a refund, apparently Epic support would make it very, very hard to get a refund.
Mm.
And then if you manage to get the refund, instead of sort of rolling back the account on buying stuff, they would just ban the account outright if you ended up like doing a chargeback or a refund request just on your kid's account. So that also brought some ethical questions on what happens to the accounts because of course some of these accounts had items that they legit bought.
Mhm.
So you're also withholding people from literally their purchases. And that also brings up some consumer advocacy questions because of okay, well, cool, you provided the parent the refund, but problem, the account also had stuff that was legitimately purchased. I mean, little John or Jane Doe who saved up a whole bunch of money to buy V-Buck cards with their allowance money, beaming their V-Bucks cards into the game for V-Bucks to buy stuff from the store. Those items end up being completely locked off because their account got banned because they went on a spending spree on their parents' credit card. So that ended up just kind of also throwing a ethical question into the mix. So yeah, this one was a real big can of worms to just read through.
Yeah. And this is not the only game that Epic Games has this problem with. Didn't we have a story 6 months ago that Fall Guys had the same issue?
Yeah. Fall Guys had a similar issue where when people were looking at skins, they would click on the skin to try to get a preview, and then they would get a prompt saying, "Hey, congrats, you just bought a new skin." And people would just go, what? I was just trying to preview the skin. I wasn't trying to buy the skin.
This is going to provide, I believe, a chilling effect to a certain extent with some companies. Not all, but some. That a big studio like Epic Games that has a lot of cash flow and a lot of companies that give them money to improve their money intake, that they got tagged with this. Because there are a lot of different games, not only on console and PC, but on mobile, that do these same things. And the other thing as well, yes, they have to provide Guardians permission to allow them to take data from their gameplay that they're doing, but that's also considering that the child actually tells the game that they're under the age of 13, which most of them do not do. So there's those issues as well in regards to this. I would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, I should say. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing a bunch of games start taking out these things because of this fine. This was an example fine. This was something that the FTC did to say, let's get the biggest person who's doing this, make an example out of them, so then the rest will just fall back in fear that they will get tagged next. Is my opinion, at least. Because the other thing too, like, these transactions aren't new at all. Like, even games like League of Legends, Dota, like games that have been here for a long time, okay, have had prompts that said, hey, you're about to spend this. Are you sure? The fact that these companies started doing this and getting away with it is in fact pretty scummy. And I'm kind of surprised that Epic was doing this at the time. I don't know what it is that they got away with. That made them get away with it for so long, except for, like, you know, the standard games media not covering this, which has been an issue. Wasn't the Fall Guys thing not covered until it got really big? Like, it really went viral? So
Yeah, pretty much when people started just kind of just blowing it up on social media going, yo, hey, Epic, Mediatonic, fix this issue because I just clicked on a skin to look at it, but I didn't realize clicking on the skin meant I would automatically be buying it.
yeah, I'm just surprised that, and I haven't been on Fortnite in God knows how long, but I'm just surprised that they were doing this, really. I just thought this was like standard legal practice, that you click on something and then say, hey, are you sure this is going to cost money? Or, hey, are you sure this is going to take away X amount of V-Bucks? I am actually legitimately surprised by this, but good on the FTC for cracking down on it. And which makes me ask another question to you, Zero. Do you think more crackdowns are coming to the gaming industry involving their means of doing monetization and microtransaction purchases?
Potentially, yes, especially if there are other companies trying to play it fast and loose, kind of like what Epic had done with Fortnite, especially with regards to dark patterns and everything, because unfortunately, most people aren't technology savvy to kind of figure out that, just things do have dark patterns. And unfortunately, the way how some of these dark patterns are built, they're built to condition people to just go, oh, well, shit, I guess it is how it is, instead of going, okay, yeah, something doesn't smell right. This shouldn't be as difficult as this is to do a certain thing, be it ask for a refund, cancel transactions, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I know towards the end of the FCC's PR statement, they had said that they did some internal testing on the Fortnite client and found that it was very, very hard to find a command to request a refund.
Yeah.
So, like, if you were a parent and you found out that your kid spent like the equivalent of $2,000 worth in V-Bucks, and then you basically had to go, okay, yeah, just this is not acceptable, little Johnny. You are not supposed to be throwing this kind of money down the drain. And then they were trying to find the refund button to tell Epic, yo, my kid did this. This was not me. This was not authorized. At least from how it was implied by the FCC's PR statement, just it seems like Epic purposely hid the command just to make it difficult to find.
Which is a common thing not only in games, but also in these gaming marketplaces. How easy is it to get a refund on Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo? It's fairly difficult. And then when you actually get to somebody who can authorize the refund, they have these arbitrary and downright draconian rules that basically makes it really hard to get a refund. Like, for example, when Cyberpunk 2077 came out and it was absolutely broken, they would until CD Projekt Red allowed refunds to get done, people were not getting refunds because Sony said, if you download the game, you own it now, and we don't give off refunds for games that you've downloaded, which is completely arbitrary and ridiculous. I think Xbox is a little bit better, but Nintendo is one of the... I've had issues with Nintendo when it comes to refunds and stuff like that. And they're not very easy either. This could be a long due thing for the gaming industry to now start being a lot more open with their purchasing and refunds when it comes to digital games. Because for a long time now, we've had to deal with downloading games on these servers and them either not working as intended, or in the worst cases, not what they advertised to be. And then these marketplaces say, you purchased it and you've played it for 30 minutes or you've downloaded it. It's over. You can't refund it. Steam is a little bit better with their refund policy where they give you, I think it was 2 hours of gameplay and then you can't refund it. I mean, that's
2 hours of gameplay.
That's a little bit better, but I have issues with their refund policy too, which I'll skip on that one. I think what it sounds like is that the FTC might be going after the gaming industry hard in the next couple of years. They're going after a big dog right now. What's to say that they're not going to start going after other companies? Like I don't know. What's it like? Destiny. Like let's say Destiny, for example. I don't know if they have these kind of scummy practices or anything, but I can see the FTC saying, let's take a look at the biggest games out there, how they're monetizing it, and see if they are being deceptive or if they're not in the spirit of the law or whatever. I can see the crosshairs finally coming to the gaming industry, which we've said all year, and before the podcast we used to talk about all the time. This was coming. This was coming in either it was going to come in a big way, or it was going to be quiet enough where the companies are going to start realizing, oh wait, we can't do this anymore. So before they start regulating us, let's just pivot.
It definitely sounds like that. A lot of developers are by tangential relationship. Online video game platform stores are definitely going to have to start trying to revise stuff in order to not be in the crosshairs of the FCC, especially since several people also had pointed out that the COPPA violations also technically violate some EU regulations that have a similar sort of structure to them. But in the EU, some of the protections extend to children that are up to even 17 in some countries, while just 13 seems to be the magic number here in the US. Yeah, you've got other countries who are a little bit more tight-fisted about this sort of thing. So that means Epic has to be compliant on that. But again, just there may be a tangential side effect that now you've got Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo potentially going, okay, so that's what happened to Epic? Okay, well, we need to start looking into ways to be in compliance with the future of this stuff, or prepare to possibly be just beaten to a pulp by the legal systems in other countries or in the US.
Yeah. We thought this was going to really hone down on loot boxes, which we've talked before, there are countries that are trying to regulate loot boxes as we speak. But the thing that I didn't think they would go this route, really, but I'm glad they did on this. I'm usually not one for the government being very heavy-handed with businesses. But when it's necessary, then the key thing is when it's necessary, then I'm for it. And this was necessary because a lot of games and a lot of the big games use these practices. And I'm really wondering exactly what they were recording from these kids. Because the other thing that people, I think gamers like us and people who are in the know realize that these games do this, but they don't just record what you do in the game. They also record what you look at or what you spend time in the shop looking at or previewing, or skins that you're looking at when you're in game. There are algorithms that point out that, hey, this account has been looking at this skin for X amount of minutes. Maybe we should, I don't know, in 2 days give them a 20% off discount. Or, hey, maybe we should put them in matches where that skin is more often seen. Stuff like that. I wonder if they are getting that data as well. Like, I would love to know the specifics of what data that they were taking from these children, because that's essentially what they do when they ask for your data with these games. They take a look at what you're interested in, and they try and feed the need for you to purchase that at any point in time.
Well, the FTC statement mentions that in some of the communications that they had with children, it was mostly concerning communications via email. So,
okay.
One of the things that they said that was prominent in emails to children's accounts were children would get like marketing surveys. So it'd be something like, "Hey, we're looking to work with Nerf to make a new Nerf gun that's based on a Fortnite weapon, and we would like your opinions as a child who plays Fortnite on what you think about this new toy that could be heading to your local retailer." And it would be stuff like, "Hey, what do you think? What do you think about the color of this toy gun? What do you think about about the color combination for the darts. Do you like the blue and orange, or would you rather it be in a different color? What do you think is a fair price for this product and stuff like that? So these kids got full on marketing emails.
Oh wow, that is insanely stupid.
And on top of that, just they would also get advertisements for the merch store, like, hey, get some swag merch to show off how much you like Fortnite, and so stuff that would be better directed to an adult. And then what also ends up kind of stacking onto the whole COPPA violations is if a kid had an issue, they would end up directly talking to a support agent. And that's a big no-no for the COPPA regulations, because no adult should be contacting these kids.
Right.
Even for a support issue, the support ticket should go to the parent, but that wasn't the case. And I know Epic actually just put out a PR statement this morning saying one of the big things that they are debuting in order to combat this whole thing is they're making new, I believe they call them nested accounts. So basically, the child account would be a sub account under the adult parent's account. And then basically just the parent has some controls that they can exert on it and everything. But things like support requests would now arrive into the parent's email box rather than the kid's email box. But again, this whole nested account thing is going to be relying on the parent, because if the parent's lazy and the parent just goes, or the parent has their kid begging them, oh, mom, don't make mine a nested account, just set up the account for me, it'll be fine, then this whole thing sort of falls apart. Right. But at the same time, I'm definitely not in favor of what countries like South Korea do, where your social country ID is bound to all of your online accounts, and that in Korea you can't make an online Korean account for any Korean games unless you've got one of these governmental IDs issued to you at birth. So yeah, I'm not in favor of that either, because I think that gets a bit too intrusive as well too.
But we're leading to that, aren't we?
Yeah, it's unfortunately definitely creeping more and more towards that.
It is rather, yeah, that is really strange that they would have support tickets and they would be speaking to children when it comes to the support tickets, because not only is it creepy for an adult to talk to a child without the parents knowing, we won't get into why, but that's obvious, but it's also, like, it's easy to manipulate a child into doing what you essentially want the outcome to be in that situation. So if they're saying, like, oh, I accidentally purchased this, I want a refund. No, buddy, sorry, final purchase. But it said, nope, sorry. Okay. And that's it. Like, it's really scummy. It really is bad. And the fact that they were doing this, like, consoles have nested accounts or sub accounts. I think other games have nested accounts too, if I recall correctly. So I don't know why it took them until now to finally say, that might not be a bad idea to have parent controls. Probably the reason is because they've been getting away with it, but they're not anymore. I guess the only question I really have is, how soon is the crackdown going to be? Are a bunch of companies, like, say, I don't know, in the next 3 months are going to suddenly start saying, oh, we have parental controls, nested accounts, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, we care about your children's privacy. How long is that going to take? Or is it going to take the FTC to go after these people too?
I believe that with Epic being at the forefront of this, expect a few other companies to make sort of feel-good PR statements, reminding people, hey, we do have parental controls, so if you don't want little Timmy or little Jane to be spending thousands and thousands of dollars, please ensure that they are set up under a sub account under your account. That way you can control their spending and set your limits on whether or not that they can chat via voice chat or text chat, or if they can accept friend requests or not, and things like that. So I would say in the next few weeks or so, expect a couple of gaming companies to come out with like their own little PR statements going, look, we're better than Epic because we give you, the parents, the control and everything. But I would say that after the feel good blitz dies off, expect any companies who've been sort of egregiously sort of slipping underneath the cracks to suddenly be exposed to potential threats by the FCC. If the FCC gets wind of them, that is. If the FTC gets wind of any other companies doing this, then yeah, maybe expect some more to come out of this. But yeah, honestly, I think what we will likely see most probably is we'll probably see some feel good PR statements reminding people, hey, we've got parental controls. If you've got kids, you should be using these.
Yeah. I think what's going to end up happening, I mean, all the console makers has sub accounts, and they also have in those accounts a limit to what their kids can do to purchase without having permission from, I guess, the parent. I know I set up a sub account for my nephew under my name, and he has a limit of, I think it's $20 that he can spend on there if he ever decides to at that point. So I set that up on there as well. I think they're gonna, like you said, they're gonna do a PR blitz showing that. I think they're gonna have to make those accounts more flexible too, because the problem I had is that if the account was already created and it wasn't created as a sub account, you can't then take that account and turn it into a sub account. You would have to create a brand new account, which became a pain because with the way that the online services work, the online services are only attached to a specific account name. So that becomes an issue as well. I think by the end of the year next year, you're going to see the online services open up a lot more in flexibility, but have much more options to crack down on these purchases. I think EA and 2K are next in this, because I think what they're going to have to start doing just to combat this, because loot boxes are next. I can already see that now, that loot boxes are the next thing that the FTC is going to go after too. I think what EA and 2K are going to have to do is start age gating the loot box mechanic game, like the Ultimate Team and My Team from their specific games, because if they don't, then I could see this FTC going after these companies and saying you're exposing kids to gambling, and then we're going to have this whole other mess that's going to happen. And is the ESA flush with enough money to defend their case against the FTC? I'm not sure. But and I know these companies do have a lot of money they can throw around to do that. But then are you going to be able to do that and then win against the FTC? Or are you going to do it, lose, and then have a massive fine coming to you right after that? Like, what's going to happen here? What do you think is the future of this?
To the point about loot boxes, in the Epic PR statement about this, they have a giant paragraph on things that they will be changing or have already changed on Fortnite. And the list goes with no pay-to-win or pay-to-progress mechanics in PvP experiences. And then the second point is a big one. No paid random loot boxes since 2019 and no gambling ever. Mm-hmm. So they've already pledged that, just you won't be buying like random loot boxes anymore, especially since they've now implemented the X-ray llama pinatas now, mm-hmm. that you can see what the items are currently being offered that day, and if you don't like them, just you can wait until the next day cycles in, and then you can then recheck the pinata and see if it's got stuff you want, and if you do, then cool, you can just go, yep, that box has all the shit I want, so let me go buy it.
Yeah, this is going to be pretty interesting, especially for the sports games, because I know a lot of games have stopped doing this type of thing, but sports games are still rife with it. And I think it's going to end up by year's end next year that I think the sports games specifically will stop doing this. And they'll just go for, unfortunately, the Overwatch model, which is basically we're going to put everything in the store, you'll have a battle pass, and then if you want a specific player or a specific special card, that'll cost 10, 15 bucks. I think is what's going to end up happening.
I'll say that we should probably add the FTC's little PR blast in addition to the epic PR blast about this for anyone who wants to read both and kind of make their own conclusions on the whole matter. Because, yeah, it's a bit of a whopper to go through. And I know we pretty much kind of quickly glossed over on some things, but yeah, I think really the both of us are more curious on the long-term effects on the video game industry that this has.
It's going to be really interesting what, like you said, what happens as a result of this. And I think we're going to see this throughout the year next year. It'll come out in drips and drabs, but it's when the big companies that like EA and Take-Two and to see what they do in regards to this. I don't think Blizzard has that issue now, technically. Well, maybe with Diablo Immortal. But I foresee a lot of these companies now officially staying away from loot boxes to a certain extent. Or at least paying for those loot boxes is what I'll say, if you know what I mean. But anyway,
yeah,
we'll move on to the next story. A quick one right here, Zero, and by quick probably means it will be 30 minutes long that we talk about it for some reason, which seems to be our MO. Microsoft pulled out a survey this past week, and it suggests that they are going to implement an ad tier version of Game Pass. This is a strange kind of suggestion because Microsoft has been saying ad nauseum throughout the whole thing with buying Activision Blizzard to their issues right now with having actual games, is that how Game Pass is the one thing you need if you're a gamer because it's a great deal and you get all these games. This kind of seems like an admission that maybe it isn't, or maybe I'm not sure really, but I find it really weird that they're doing this. So, Zero, what are your thoughts on Microsoft suggesting that they're going to do an ad tier version of their Game Pass?
It's a bit interesting because as it stands currently, the Xbox Series X dashboard does already have ads in it. And that's if you already are paying for either Xbox Live or Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. The dashboard is full of ads. There's just no sugarcoating.
Right.
I don't know how you would get away with that on PC. I mean, maybe the Xbox app has more ads than usual, but I mean, for the time being, the ads are kind of minimalistic as it is. So, I mean, at the top of the Xbox app, where it has Game Pass What's Happening, it'll show like, hey, like for example, right now, Halo Infinite's got a holiday event, featured Game Pass games of 2022, a notice to pre-install Atomic Heart to get ready when that goes live on Game Pass, a mention to buy Game Pass gift cards to give out for Christmas, and then a partner offer from an app and everything. And then, of course, in the PC games section, you've got this giant banner mentioning the Riot Games partnership that's going on, that if you link your Riot account with your Xbox Game Pass account, you'll get things like all agents unlocked in Valorant, all heroes unlocked on League of Legends, so on and so forth. So, I mean, the current incarnation of the Windows Xbox app, yeah, there are ads, but they're kind of minimal at the moment. And I just think that if there was an ad-supported one, it would just make the whole thing super cluttered.
I don't think that's exactly what they mean by ad tier. I think what they are thinking of is ads while you're gaming. I'm thinking, and this is the only way I can see this working, because the way you're thinking about it is, I would get that, but I don't think that exactly would work, because what they want people to do is interface with those ads. And by just putting a little box on the upper left-hand or the lower right-hand corner saying, hey, Doritos, buy them, I don't think that will be that effective, and I don't think a lot of brands will want to advertise for it if it's not effective. I'm thinking what they're doing with ad tier is basically saying, while you're playing games that are from Game Pass, every 15 minutes we'll have a commercial. I think that's what they're doing. Like, let's say you have a Game Pass game, like MLB. After 3 innings of a game, suddenly the game will pause and then there's an ad. Or let's say you're playing Metal Health Singer and you're done with a level, an ad. I think that's what they're doing. I don't see it being, oh, you're on our interface, here's an ad for Coca-Cola. Those don't work, or they work minimally. They'll want to have an ad to your service, and the reason why is to get people to purchase those ads. And for them to purchase it, they have to believe that people will actually see, notice, and engage with those ads. And the only way to do that is to put them up front and force them to watch, which is what a lot of free-to-play games and a lot of free-to-play apps do on the App Store. I think that is what they're going for, unless it was exposed otherwise.
The timed idea, I think, would take a lot of the momentum out of a lot of people's sales. I could see something like maybe injecting ads into like loading screens. So, like for example, with Darktide, when you're done with a mission, usually you'll see a loading screen with like some Warhammer 40K quotes like in duty is the path of happiness. So instead of those loading screens, you may see instead like a video ad for Rockstar energy drinks, because you can get codes for free Xbox Game Pass stuff or whatever.
I don't think, and the other thing as well, I don't think they count the ads of, hey, this game is on the Xbox store, or hey, this first-party game is having a winter celebration. They're not going to count those. I think they're talking specifically third-party ads.
Oh, yeah.
So even if you say, hey, I have the non-ad version, but you're advertising Halo Infinite, they're going to look at you and go, well, that doesn't count. It's like, that doesn't count. I mean, we're talking third-party ads, and I think that's where they're going to go for here. So if they go for it and do this, it would have to be a really cheap tier. I don't see it working, because I think the technology to get this right has to be pretty complex, correct? Because not only are you going to have to track people who are on Game Pass, but you're going to have to find a way to implement it in every game so it feels right. And what about the games that don't allow you to pause? Like, are you going to, let's say they have, I don't know, let's say they put Elden Ring on Game Pass. Are they going to start sectioning off games on Game Pass where, well, if you have the ad tier version, you're not going to be able to play Elden Ring, because if we give you the ad tier version, it's going to give you a worse experience. So there's a lot of questions with this. So, or another thing I just thought about, maybe while you're playing the game, there is a window on the top right-hand corner that just pops up and said, hey, while you're killing the Forsaken, why not have a Pepsi? Like, I don't know. Maybe something along those lines, but I don't see them doing an ad tier version unless they force you to watch the ad. If you can find a way to just skip it, the ad tier version is not going to do anything, really. That is if they actually do this. Like, I think you mentioned on here as well. So
I think, in my opinion, this is more just sort of I guess you could call it a fishing expedition of sorts to see what user feedback is. And people often forget that with these little Xbox marketing surveys, they don't always act on everything that they ask for. Sometimes they will get back the feedback from users who get the survey, and maybe the overwhelming majority say, hey, I don't think this is a good idea. Then at that point, they'll bring back the data to whoever higher up ordered this survey to go out, and they'll say, yeah, the users hate the idea of this. They think it's fucking terrible. Then at that point, Xbox might just go, okay, noted, terrible idea. Let us not ever talk about it in this form or fashion again until we can revisit it in a way that actually works better or something.
Yeah, I don't think this will go anywhere either. I think you're actually dead on right. Like you said, they're just trying to get a feeler for what people think of this. And I only see, honestly, I would only see people purchasing this if it's like $3.99, $4.99, if it's just the Xbox version. Because you also made a good point too. How are they going to do this on PC? Because you know damn well someone will come up with something that will block those ads from happening on PC. So you would have to keep it on Xbox. So, yeah, I think you're right on this. I I think this is just, let's see what people think of this, and then either they won't do it, or if they do decide to do it, it will be in a preview stage on Xbox. And I think that is about it. All right, Zero, so we are at the end of the year, so that means we have to go through our year in review wheel to discuss what we're going to discuss about what happened in the year 2022. Zero, are you ready?
Yep, let's do this.
A little more excitement next time, but okay, we'll take it. All right, let's go. Boom, 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 boom. GameStop's continued woes is our topic. GameStop. I think it was the year 2020 where they had the whole GameStop thing that happened, correct?
Yep, that was where just you had people on Reddit who basically just pushed back on investors who were hoping for the stock to be shorted.
Yeah,
but ended up over leveraging their positions. So you had that happen, and then somehow just it turned GameStop from being a garbage tier stock to like an insanely crazy, a overvalued stock. It was kind of a weird fall and rise, and now it's sort of trending back down to a equalization point of the stock trying to find a value that it's supposed to stay at.
Yeah.
It's been a whole weird saga.
It has been really weird. And I think the weirdest thing about it is how these people had such nostalgia for GameStop. Because I got to tell you, and I think you're the same way with me. I have been I've been following the gaming industry and people who love gaming for decades now. And the one constant that I kept hearing, not only just recently, but in the 20-25 years, is how much we all hated GameStop. Like, I don't know anybody, except for people who say, hey, the people that work at the GameStop I go to are kind of nice. Which, fine, that's fine. There are decent people who work at GameStop. But honestly, I've never had positive feelings about GameStop. And when the digital revolution was happening, there was a timer that was conveniently placed to where if GameStop didn't change, it was going to go down. And 2020 seemed like that was going to happen. And then this GameStop thing happened, and it completely inflated what GameStop's worth was. I mean, they got a huge cash infusion. They started getting other business people involved. Reggie Fils-Aimé was on the board for a small period of time. They suddenly had a resurgence. And when we were talking around that time too, and we basically said, they need to do something to save this company, because just relying on this is not going to help. And this led to them going the NFT route. Do you remember what happened with the NFTs this year?
Oh, yes. Just NFTs have just become such a terrible, terrible situation, especially with just a lot of NFT projects being either scams or weird pump and dump schemes that end up being some sort of variation of a fucked up Ponzi scheme.
For GameStop to then take a good amount, what they did was they put a good amount of capital into an NFT marketplace. And when they opened the marketplace, about a week before that, they immediately started laying people off and closing stores, which isn't the sign of a healthy business. I hate to say this. And if reports have been said correctly, they have been losing cash. They have lost almost $100 million during their crypto efforts. And they're now dropping the crypto market on GameStop. Like, it failed utterly in this. I guess really the thing that go on is that GameStop is continuing down the slide that they've been going down for, I would say, the last 10 years?
Yeah, I'd say so. And it's kind of funny that you mentioned about just how a lot of people have had mostly distaste for GameStop.
Yeah.
And I think it's mostly just from a lot of the corporate policies that were set by the higher ups to basically force the grunts on the ground to basically sell to potential customers, like the constant warranty upsells of, hey, you're buying this game today. Do you want to buy a game warranty on it? We'll cover it if anything happens, and if the game breaks when you stick it into your system. And of course, you could tell most of the GameStop clerks were either in one of two camps. Camp one, you could tell just by them looking at you, they were just like, I am so sorry that I'm telling you this.
Yeah.
I have to. It is my job, or else the manager's going to bitch and say that I'm killing the metrics if I'm not. Or if it was the manager that did not like this, you could tell it was I'm just doing this just in case my regional manager sent a secret shopper to snoop around and see what I'm doing. I'm sorry. Just bear with me. Just say no as usual and whatever.
Yeah.
So that was one camp, and then you had the other camp that drank the Kool-Aid so hard, and they just like, oh, but you never know, the game could arrive completely damaged in the box, and you're sitting here going, well, if it's damaged in the box, the warranty is not really going to be needed anyways, because I'm going to look at you and go, I need to exchange this copy for an undamaged copy, because when I opened the box, the disc had a large gouge on it.
Yeah. I mean, at times when I hear, oh, look at what these employees have to do, it's their job, okay? I mean, at one point, it's hard for me to feel sorry for people to do their jobs. But on the other hand, I understand it, because the people they get that work at GameStop aren't necessarily salespeople. They're people who say, wouldn't it be great to talk about games all the time with a bunch of people while selling it to them? That's how they think. I hate to say this to most people, but retail is, in the hierarchy of jobs that you can have, one of the easiest jobs you can do. It doesn't take much. All you're doing is putting stuff on shelves, taking people's money, giving them change. And then, some customer service where you're helping them with something. That's it. That's all you're doing. So it's meant for low-skilled labor to do that. I think that's been GameStop's problem, because what they do is they hire people who have no intention of actually being salespeople, and to get better at being salespeople with not enough incentives to be good salespeople. And they keep hiring people that essentially don't want to do that work and who are largely ineffective. Yeah, I feel bad for people who work there and go, I know you're not interested, but I have to ask. And yeah, I understand that. I really do. I do get annoyed at the employees who know who I am, and this is why I stopped going to GameStops. Like, I get annoyed at the people who know who I am and know that I'm just here to buy a game, or if I really want to pre-order something, I'll do it. And then they keep asking, and they keep asking, and they keep asking. Because I used to work in banking, okay? If you had a customer that would come in all the time, and I'm talking like every day, every 2 days, every 3 days, is a constant, someone you see all the time, and they keep asking you, can you stop asking that? If I want that, I will let you know. Seriously. When you have that type of customer, you just make them happy and go, that's fine, I understand. And if a manager comes up, why don't you pitch them? Goes, he's here every day. I've already talked to him. He's not interested. That's all you got to do. That's all I did in banking. And that's all you really have to do is get better at it. But I can still sympathize because, one, these people are not being paid very well. So why would they give a shit? And two, they're not given an incentive to get better. Except for, if you want the hours, you're going to do it. And most people are going to be like, well, fuck you then. I'll just find a better job.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I did a part-time job stint over at GameStop.
So did I.
1 year. And yeah, I remember just trying the old tactic of, well, this person comes in all the time. They don't want to be bothered about it. And I got reamed by the manager for just not asking because I was hurting the metrics of the region. And it was one of those things that I just had to quietly roll my eyes on my break time and everything. But yeah, it was so bad. It was just kind of just brute force this thing. We promise someone will take the sale. It's just like, yeah, you're not offering me enough for my time to learn how to get good at selling.
Right. And I've really never been, including the one I worked in, I have never been in a GameStop or heard of a GameStop that had good management. Maybe, that may be because of the higher up management. But I have never walked into a GameStop, spoke to a manager and felt like, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. Never. I have never been there. Like, and that's what makes me feel really bad for the underlings, the ones that I should come up with better names, because underlings is kind of derisive. But for the entry level position people, I feel bad for them because they have to deal with the most bullshit, and they're not given enough of incentive to improve. And that's one thing I learned in banking, is that if you don't give them the incentive to improve, they're not going to. Like, and if you threaten their job, oh, you have to, or else I'll fire you, they'll find another job. Like, it's not that hard. It really isn't. So that's been the key problem with the business model, or the model of employees and stuff with GameStop and how they've tried to get employees. Because if you want them to be sales employees, you have to get people who are good at sales. And they hire people that are not, or they have people who are interested in that job that are just not interested in being salesmen. They really are not. But let's get into, I would say, the bigger picture of GameStop in the past 10 or 15 years. And it's that I think they stuck to the video games business a little too long. There are some stores that I recall maybe 10 years ago that would sell, I don't know, a plushie or two, or Funko Pops or whatever. They didn't start getting really into it until about maybe 5 years ago. And I think that was too late on their end. What do you think?
That was right about the time that they finished the buyout of ThinkGeek, and then started to integrate the ThinkGeek business into their GameStop stores, because like after the integration finished, and I want to say within like arc of 2 or 3 years ago, you would start seeing stuff that was clearly from the ThinkGeek side of the house. Like you could go into a GameStop, and on top of like video games, video game related like merch and plushies and Funko Pops and stuff like that, you would also find things like a kit to make a potato powered clock, just things that you would clearly go, oh god, this is something that was sold on ThinkGeek like years ago. Wow, what the hell? This has like absolutely nothing to do with video games. What the fuck is it doing here?
Yeah, like, why are they having Funko Pops is my question. Yeah, maybe some that have something to do with video games, but they have like Marvel Funko Pops, DC Funko Pops. They have Funko Pops for like Battlestar Galactica, stuff that really has nothing to do with games. And I guess they're trying to become a pop culture kit shop to a certain extent, but that's not going to work either, because you can get that stuff easily on the internet, and no one cares about that. Like, people care, but they have ways of getting that if they're into it.
Yeah, and I think another thing that they've been trying to get into is potentially doing yet another remodel of the stores to promote stuff like basically being kind of like a local LAN cafe as well too. So an area to sort of hang out, play video games on nice high-end gaming rigs and high-speed internet, or somewhere that can be like a local host to sort of like small timey grassroots tournaments and stuff like that. So like if you've got like a small community who's running like fighting game tournaments, and you kind of want like a smallish venue, then you can, the idea that GameStop has is that you would have like a tournament official who would end up kind of like booking time at a local GameStop store, going, yeah, I want to run a small local city level tournament to, just to run a, I don't know, a Guilty Gear Strive tournament for like a prize pot of maybe $100. So you basically have a tournament official who pays for that, and then the tournament official then tries to kind of make back up whatever they paid to rent the GameStop's the LAN portion of the GameStop store. And at that point, they collect their tournament fee of maybe like $5 or $10 per entrant. So that way, the tournament runner gets their part of the deal. And of course, just while this tournament is going, the GameStop also has like a beverage and snack area. So, you've got competitors who can go, okay, yeah, sure. I lost in my pools and didn't make top 8, but no big deal. I want to stay and watch the end of the tournament, see who wins out. But damn, I'm pretty hungry. I'm pretty thirsty. I could go for a snack, and just what a convenience. This local GameStop has bottles of Mountain Dew and Monster energy drinks right there for the taking. The GameStop is selling in cans of Monster for $4.50 a can, and you've got things like candy bars and protein bars that are like priced at $3 to $6 per, and boom, there you go. They're raking in pretty high margins on these snacks, and that's kind of one of the LAN party sort of hangout spot ideas that GameStop has had. And even still, just with the post-COVID world, it's been kind of hard to run tournaments because there's still some people who are very hesitant to go to a tournament and everything, especially with the health concerns of just a lot of these GameStop stores that are trying to turn themselves into LAN centers. They're not in very, very big locations either. They're honestly in locations that are very, very tight and jam-packed. So that's a problem with a lot of the GameStop stores too. And if you were to hold a very big tournament in one of these stores, it'd probably be a violation of whatever municipality's fire codes that are there for that sort of thing. So if for me, it has me scratching my head, especially when they had announced sometime last year that they wanted to go into the esports angle and LAN cafe sort of angle with the GameStop stores, because again, honestly, I just don't see how it's possible. In some cases, like my closest local GameStop store is in a very, very, very cramped location in a strip mall, and I just don't know how in the hell that location would be able to turn itself into a LAN party store location. I just don't see it. And one of the other locations that's somewhat nearby is a GameStop that's in a local mall, but again, same thing like the one that's located on a strip mall or shopping plaza complex and everything. The one inside the mall is super tiny, and I just don't see a LAN center magically just popping up out of that either. I don't. And I just don't know how this whole esports angle is going to work. There are logistical problems to be solved, and I don't think that GameStop is going to magically turn around and go, okay, well, we want to do this LAN esports thing, so I know what we have to do. We got to go buy completely brand new lots for the stores, and we got to close some stores down. By the way, we've also got to pay for movers to move all the inventory and make sure that, we get an accurate count of the inventory so nothing gets stolen during the moving process. There's just way too many moving pieces for this. And as much as I think it would be an interesting point to see the culture of LAN cafes sort of come back in the form of GameStop, I just don't see it being financially viable for them. And with that being said, maybe they're better off just limiting this plan to some of the bigger stores, because I know one of the bigger stores in the North Dallas area is tied to a Barnes & Noble. And this particular location is humongous with retrospect to some of the other GameStops in the North Dallas area and everything.
See, that kind of makes sense, because Barnes & Noble, if people don't know, they they sell a lot of board games and designer board games too. So that kind of makes sense to have those two married together.
Yeah, well, I mean, at one point, GameStop was owned by the company that owned Barnes and Noble. So, and then at one point, basically, GameStop wanted their independence, so they're just like, yeah, we'd like to kind of buy ourselves out, please. And they managed to do that. But this one particular store in North Dallas, even after the separation, they've still kept the stores interconnected. But yeah, I mean, the land center idea, I could see working for places like that where they do have a large location that, yeah, they could probably compress down some of the shelves and things like that and make room for kind of like a LAN cafe setup where they've got like some primo gaming machines, maybe a couple areas that have some of the nice, maybe BenQ esports gaming monitors. So like if you're bringing in your own PS5s or Xbox Series X's to do like LAN tournaments, then you can just connect your system up and do some esports action. Maybe that, but I know that the LAN cafe tournament center idea was something that they had put out, I think, a PR blast last year that they wanted to try to deploy to all of their stores. And yeah, just when I saw that announcement, I was just like, yeah, I don't know how you're going to do that for the locations that are stuck in like a tiny strip mall store location, or a store that's got a tiny ass lot inside of a big mall or something. You're not going to suddenly have them go, oh, well, we got to sell our small lot and immediately go find a new big lot, and then just get inventory moved, pay for movers, and then we have to remodel the inside of the store so it looks like it's all about esports and stuff like that. And we have to also requisition monitors and other esports related technical gear. Just, I don't see it.
Right. And the other thing with GameStop too is the amount of things that get stolen at GameStops is fairly high. I mean, it's been like 15 years since I've worked there, but I hear a lot of people still complain that stuff gets stolen from there all the time, not just from customers, but from employees too. How are you going to stop people from stealing monitors, setups, controllers, things like that, with employees that are making minimum wage? Like, if I was a minimum wage employee and there's make sure no one steals that stuff, like, I'm not fucking doing that. Are you crazy? Like, you have to pour more money into this business that you have no guarantee will make more money back. And like you also said too, is there's a lot of stores that are pretty small, so not all stores will be able to do that. The other thing you have to do as well is you have to make sure that there is really good internet in those stores. So even if they have a big location, you now have to spend money on business internet, which I think is $150, $200, $250 a month. Maybe that's another expense on top of that, and then to set it up where it's the feed is broken into different computers, that's going to cost money unless you do Wi-Fi. But then if it's Wi-Fi, you're going to have a lot of latency problems. So it won't be. There is so many things in that cause complications that the only way to make it work is spend more money. And not every store can do that. But there's no guarantee it's going to work. I mean, a lot of gamers like playing games, sure. And they like playing in competitive games. But they're not necessarily competitive. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, they're not the type of people that'll say, hey, I'm pretty good at Call of Duty. I can see myself winning a tournament. No, not a lot of people are like that. You're speaking to a niche upon a niche of people. So to build a business around that, where you're going to get strangers to walk in and say, hey, I want to be in this tournament, I don't think that's going to work. I think that's not going to work out for you. Because all that's going to happen is these people are going to get humiliated and never want to come back. So that's another issue on top of that. I think we're going to see GameStop close more stores down and fire more employees by, I would say, summer of next year. What do you
Yeah,
think?
that'd probably be a plausible guess. And I think the whole esports center idea is a bit half-baked as well too,
Oh God.
especially because of the fact that I think one of the points that they had made was, oh yeah, we can potentially have a revenue stream come in from like concessions because people are going to want drinks and snacks, so we can offer like drinks and snacks while people watch and spectate a tournament that's going on, or if they get knocked out of the tournament and want to keep staying until the end of the tournament, then they can pick up snacks and drinks from us, and snacks and drinks are high margin items. And it's just like, yeah, but while they're high margin, they're not significant margins either. I mean, sure, you can charge like $4 to $6 for like a can of energy drink that might maybe be like $1 a can or something, but even then, you're only just making a couple bucks, and you'd have to sell a significant amount in order to go, hey, look, this is like a major profit maker. If it ends up you only sell like maybe a 20 or 30 cans from an esports event for an energy drink, that's not really in the realm of thousands and thousands of dollars.
No. And they're not free of cost either, because if you're now going to sell drinks and you're going to sell food, that brings upon another thing you have to worry about, which is you have to make these stores maybe I'm wrong in this because these are all processed and they're in cans and in packaging. But if you're selling food, I think the government has some sort of regulation that you have to abide by in order to make it as clean as humanly possible for people to consume food. So, like, if they're going to sell, like, if it's, I might be wrong on this. Like, if it's open container, like, let's say popcorn or something or hot dogs or something like that, you then have to hire people who are good with food and stuff like that. That might not be what you're talking about here. But
Yeah, I think at minimal for like packaged food, there would have to be a control process to make sure that you've got employees regularly doing inventory to see, what's out of date or what's getting close to out of date. So that's yet another thing to train employees on. And GameStop employees are underpaid and overworked as it is.
right. So
And
I don't see that working.
yeah, and exactly. I just don't see like enough GameStop employees giving a damn being paid barely minimum wage to take maybe one day a week to go, okay, we got to do expiration duty and see if we've got any old Snickers candy bars that are out of date. We got to look at cans of Monster and see if these cans of Monster are starting to get out of date. It's just another headache to add to the mess.
But according to Wikipedia, as of right now, there are 4,573 locations as of January of this year. That's gone down. I know that. So let's say 4,000 locations of GameStops as of the end of this year. I can see that dropping 25% by the end of next.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially with the fact that just GameStop isn't really just the only place to buy video games these days. You've got Walmart and Best Buy getting competitive with pricing on video games, and even in a lot of occasions, just plain edging out GameStop on just video game pricing. Because I've seen situations where there'll be a brand new video game that just released, and even though it just released, Walmart is just trying to get rid of them immediately for the shelf space to get whatever the newest hot game is coming out in the next week.
Yeah.
So that game might have like a discount of anywhere from $10 to $12 off of MSRP immediately on launch day.
Yep.
And the offer's it's one of those in-store only sort of offers that if you see the game in the shelf marked with this discount, you can get it with that discount. But if you were to say order the game online, the game's online listing would have it like full MSRP.
Yeah. And that's going to continue in stores like you said, Walmart, Target, and the like. Unless they come up with a killer idea. Like, I see a lot of the board cashing out, possibly. And I see, or either that, or I see a lot of these stores closing and then employees being laid off. This is just going to go downhill more and more. We'll see by 2025, if we're, I'll be generous. By 2025, I think we're going to see the end of GameStop. I think it will precipitously go down unless they decide to do another stupid idea to waste money on. I think if they just stay the course right now, 2025, they're done.
Yeah, it'll just be interesting to see where their path takes them, especially since I think one of the really damning pieces of their situation was the fact that they had Reggie Fils-Aimé on their board, and then there was news that he had ended up dropping out of their board, and then he ended up making a PR statement that essentially translated to, "I tried to give the company my advice. They thought my advice was just a bunch of fluff, so I figured if they don't want to listen, okay, I'm done. I guess I'm out."
But we don't know what that advice was, and we won't know because I think there's an NDA involved with him exiting the company. To not listen to Reggie Fils-Aimé, who had a successful turn in both Pizza Hut and Nintendo, I don't know. Maybe his idea was terrible, but something tells me that in my mind, management is probably looking to cash out sometime soon. At best, is what it sounds like, or just die with the ship. All right, let's spin this wheel one more time for the episode where we talk about another topic in this year's Year in Review. You ready, Zero?
Yeah, let's go for the second topic for this week.
Spin that wheel! Yeah! Wheel of morality. Turn, turn, turn. Tell us the lesson that we should learn. Oh, God. Interesting. We just talked about this. Loot box regulations. Something interesting happened essentially this year, and that's basically that a bunch of countries and some boards have essentially told the gaming industry it's time to control the loot box situation, or we're going to do something about it. The recent news was that Australia put in a bill, a politician put in a bill to regulate loot boxes. Didn't the Netherlands as well at some point this year? The UK. Go ahead.
The Netherlands had regulation a while ago, but it wasn't until I want to say last year, Belgium decided to join in and say, yeah, we're going to follow the Netherlands lead, and we're going to also start banning loot boxes because I think it was sometime late last year, NBA 2K22 had like a little message in the beginning for people who were playing the game in either the Netherlands or in Belgium that basically amounted to, hey, do you guys not like the ability to buy My Team packs? You should beg to your government that what they're doing is unjust. So please lobby your government to re-enable loot boxes, essentially.
Yeah. And from what I've heard, that didn't really work out very well. Belgium is another one that's banned loot boxes. I think they did that last year.
Which is what I just mentioned. So
I thought you mentioned the Netherlands.
No, I said the Netherlands started it, but then Belgium followed.
I'm sorry. I'm doing two things at once. Okay.
And then, of course, as you mentioned, we had an Australian politician get on board saying, hey, we should really start looking at regulating this and also rating games that have loot boxes to be rated for adults only.
Yep.
And in extreme cases, maybe even rating the games as RC, which in the Australian rating system, an RC is essentially a refuse classification, effectively banning the game from sale in the Australian market. So very, very, very serious sorts of discussions on this. And I believe some U.S. politicians have also started to make some mumblings about potentially evaluating loot boxes on a legislative basis too. So
right.
There could be some things in the works for the U.S. market too.
Right. I know that Ted Cruz talked about it a little bit. I know Marco Rubio has. A bunch of Democratic politicians have talked about it. The Republicans are kind of in the thought process of there's nothing really a government should do on this, whereas the Democrats are slightly different, but not as concrete. But yeah, there are those in the U.S. The U.K., their commission on gambling has leveled warnings to the gaming industry to start regulating yourselves, or we will. We have a bunch of countries in the EU that have also talked about doing regulations on loot boxes. This is something that, for the most part, has been a lot of talk in the past couple of years. But this is the first year where I think governments are getting serious about it, where they are now leveling threats, or they're starting to put laws into to possibly put laws down in order to get this started and to get the conversation of possibly banning these loot boxes, which is interesting that it took them this long to do this. I guess the question is there big enough teeth to either make the gaming industry stop and regulate them more efficiently, or will they have enough power in the legislature or in other countries and with politicians to put a roadblock down and to not make this happen? What are your thoughts?
As far as potential for adding roadblocks to loot boxes, I think it's very likely that it's going to happen, and I think we're already seeing the foundations of that. Mm-hmm. A great example of this would be Overwatch 2. Launch of Overwatch 2 has definitely shown this, especially since, I want to say, either weeks or months before the official launch date back in October, Blizzard had made a giant blog post saying, hey, so Overwatch 2 will be doing away with loot boxes, and instead we will have the ability to buy things outright from the store, and additionally we'll have a season pass so you can get some of these cool collectible things that you can add to your profile and whatnots. And I think that's really where the likely next step of the gaming industry is going to be. It's going to be just trying to monetize the hell out of the season passes and trying to do whatever it takes to make sure that gamers maximize their engagement time by doing stuff related to season passes. So things like, hey, there's this really cool costume you can get for this one character, but the only way to get it is to buy in on the season pass. Oh, by the way, the season pass is live today, and you have 2 or 3 months in order to work on the season pass and get the items. And if you don't get the item, well, sucks to be you. Tough luck. You better hope it comes back around next time, or that we feel generous enough to offer it up in the cash shop so you can just buy it outright.
I wonder how well that's going to turn out, though. And we'll get into this if we ever get into talking about Overwatch 2, which is on the wheel. Overwatch 2 had the distinct issue of a lot of people complaining about the prices regarding these skins. I think there's one skin in there that's like $20 to just get. I wonder if they are really going to have to force themselves to stay away from loot boxes. First off, it's going to hurt the sports games like the most out of anything, because the sports games still do loot boxes, and two, they have ingrained those games into loot boxes like so much that they would have to essentially redo the entire process of the game, not in the gameplay, but in the menus, in order to divorce themselves from it. And here's the thing, I don't think that putting in a shop like that would work for the sports games. I think a lot of people who are into sports games are so ingrained into having sports cards, like baseball cards, football cards, basketball cards, stuff like that, that it was just a natural extension of doing that. So they were completely okay with it. Whereas now if you take that away, you're going to get a lot less people who are going to be willing to interface with that type of business model. For example, I don't see somebody paying $20 for a Shaquille O'Neal card. Like, I don't see that. I see people looking at that and go, for a character, are you fucking insane? I'm not spending $20 on Shaquille O'Neal. That's crazy. And then you're going to have the stigma of the only way you got that card is that you actually paid $20 to it. And there's that extra stigma and shame to it when you purchase that. So here is what I think is going to end up happening. Once these loot boxes either regulated away or the business or these companies take them out on their own volition, you're going to see a sharp layoff of a lot of these studios, from EA, 2K, and the likes that have been using these to bump up their sales projections.
I think it's likely possible. I could see something like a reduction of staff psychologists, because a lot of these loot box systems, they're typically developed with a psychologist on staff who knows how to tell the art designers to do the right things to get the endorphin rush going of opening the loot boxes. I can see a lot of those positions going away, but they'll maybe keep just a handful of these staff psychologists to work on the battle passes to make sure that the battle passes are just engaging enough to keep the players playing the game and constantly interacting with the game to make sure that the players don't leave the treadmill.
What do you think they can do to do that, though?
They can probably do some effects on like the season pass rewards. So like if you have the standard season pass, then you just get kind of like just a little bit of fireworks. So you're just kind of like, oh, okay, neat. But they might kind of tease you and go, hey, you sure you don't want to consider going premium on the season pass? Look at how epic the rewards could have been, and just a preview of the rewards could be tied to like just a massive fireworks display or something, and to show all the potential rewards you're missing out on, just to kind of drive that sort of FOMO reaction in you, that you just go, okay, well, shit, if the rewards are that cool and that's the reaction that the game would give me if I did get the season pass, okay, I guess I'll throw it on an extra $30 for the season 5 season pass or something.
Now, I know that NBA has season passes. They have I think they're called journeys or seasons or something, where basically they not only have like a kind of a season pass, but you level it up to get different cards or different types of things. But they also release every season a new set of cards that you have to collect. They do. I know they do that. MLB, the game I play all the time, has season passes, I think about every 3 weeks, that you can grind to get different types of cards, but they are fairly reasonable. So I don't know if the EA games have it. I don't think they do. But I can see them definitely going that route too, of doing more battle passes and stuff like that. So that will be interesting. Do you think that sports games start going away from the loot box model next year? Or do you think they're going to have to be forced kicking and screaming to actually get out of it?
This one is hard to say, mostly because I feel it's going to really depend on how the governmental bodies end up sort of evaluating the situation. Because if it's one of those situations that they really hardball the game developers and basically say, hey, you need to knock off this business quick or else, then yeah, at that point, in that sort of scenario, they might have to be dragged kicking and screaming immediately sometime next year. But, let's say they grease the right palms over at the ESA, and then the ESA greases the right palms in the U.S. government, then yeah, they might not go away next year. They may not go away until maybe sometime after 2025, when they finally get laws codified and say, hey, on this day we're signing off a bill to say that this this sort of thing cannot be in video games anymore, and if you don't like it, tough nuts. But yeah, I think that's really what it's going to come down to, just how legislators around the world end up treating loot boxes. Because yeah, if it's something like the EU as a collective ends up standing up together and saying, yeah, we just want to ban loot boxes altogether, then that might be another scenario that could bring video game developers kicking and screaming, because they're going to see that as shit. Our game is getting banned in the entirety of the EU. We cannot do without that sweet, sweet cash from Europe. So give them what they want. We'll make a loot box free game, and we'll just make it the default version of the game available everywhere.
Here's what I think. The FTC is aggressively going after tech companies. They just went after Epic. They're going after Microsoft. I don't see how they can grease any palms to the government when the FTC is going after these tech companies this aggressively. So I don't think that's going to happen with America. I think that if they find another thing to go against the tech companies with, they're going to go after them. And it would be, in my opinion, it would be in the best interests of these businesses, 2K, EA, is to either stop it now and then implement that shop and game pass and that battle pass model in the following year, or slowly start to take that stuff away. Like, if you've already coded, like, I don't see, for example, MLB, the new MLB is due out in like 4 months. Okay, I can't see them taking away the packs and the loot boxes. So I can see them still having them, but maybe making them cheaper, or making the odds a lot more generous, or just making it so they're not as necessary to have them at all, to a certain extent. And then the following year saying, okay, we're getting rid of the packs. I think, in all honesty, with these many countries and these big of countries starting to fight against it, I think these companies are going to start getting legal advices from their lawyers, basically saying it's time to start curbing this down. And I think when that starts happening, the sign of that starting to happen is when the CEOs of these companies, like Andrew Wilson, Strauss Zelnick, and the like, start stepping down. Because when they start stepping down is when they're going to realize, oh, I'm going to take a bath in the next quarter because we're not going to have these loot boxes. So I might as well ride out into the sunset and let somebody else deal with that. If they start stepping down, like, suddenly, or they're saying, oh, I'm leaving after X quarter of this year, then you know that the money is going to start drying up. So I think that is what's going to happen. They're going to want to still play nice with the regulators, because if they start to being defiant and say, we're going to do it until you make us, then there's other things that these regulators can actually pin them on right after they do it. They'll want to play ball to a certain extent by basically making the need for the FTC and these regulators to not concentrate on them as much. Because let's be honest here. If they start saying, we're going to put laws down, or we're going to start having guidances and stuff, what usually slows that down are the businesses saying, maybe we should hold off on that. And then the regulators will start saying, okay, well, they're stopping doing that, so we don't have to concentrate on that right now. We'll concentrate on something else, and we'll get to that when that time comes. So then the press stuff is, I don't know, is not as bad. And then loot boxes get regulated away in, let's say, 2025, when no one's been using loot boxes for a couple of years. I think that's what's bound to happen. Do you have any more thoughts on the subject?
It'll just be interesting to see how this all pans out. Honestly, the season pass thought, I would like to see more game developers do what Halo Infinite is doing, which is when you buy the season pass, it is yours to keep forever.
Yes.
And you can even go back and toggle on an old season pass in case if you just want to complete it because it had a certain cosmetic set that you want. I would like to see more developers do that, but unfortunately, I know most won't because they just want to prey on the FOMO and just get people into spending just as much cash as they can on a game. And it's a bit disappointing because I know as a gamer who's getting up in my years and everything, I just don't simply have the interest to just mono game one game just to grind out season pass stuff. It's just not that fun for me anymore.
I definitely understand that, and I think that will then become the next thing that regulators will prey on, because I don't think a lot of these regulators realize that people are paying for stuff that are then taken away from them. And when that happens, I think that's going to get a lot of the regulators starting wondering, so wait a minute, you're having people spend $100, $200, $300 on stuff, and they're not even getting the stuff they want? I mean, that's pretty anti-consumer, and to an extent, I think in some countries that's actually against the law to then, unless it's like a lottery system of some sorts, you really shouldn't be able to do that. I agree with you. Like, Gwent, the game I keep telling you ad nauseum about, does that, where if you buy the pass, you have access to it for as long as you're playing the game, which is great to me. I mean, I would rather that. So I don't see why any of these companies wouldn't do that at this point. They'll make up some like technical excuse. Like, well, we don't have the space or the RAM to actually do that, which is bullshit. They can easily find that. But I think that will be, after the loot box thing is done, that'll be the next thing that they will probably prey upon when it comes to regulation. And we'll see what comes from that. All right, well, we are at the end of the episode of the Capital Games Podcast. We're going to forego the question this week, but we're going to talk about next week. As you've all noticed, we're doing the year in review, and I think we're just going to do an episode on that, right? Would that be the right thing to do, Zero? I mean, I don't foresee any big news happening. Of course, it may just happen anyway, but we're talking about the week of Christmas. I don't really foresee anything happening. So if you're going to tune into next week's episode, you're going to hear more year in review stuff. What do you think, Zero? Since
the Steam sale will be going on, since it kicks off on Thursday the 22nd and goes until, I think, January 2nd, maybe I might talk about some recommended things to pick up on Steam, especially since by the time next week's episode goes live, we'll still be within the running of the Steam sale.
Okay, that's not a bad idea. Man, I should talk to you more about ideas for this. Man, I'm not doing my job very well. But yeah, if you are listening to the podcast during your Christmas time, around that time, expect that it'll be a year in review plus things you think we should get for the Steam sale. And I think there's gonna be other sales too. So I know Xbox has a sale during that time, so there are probably gonna be sales all over the place for the new systems that you get. At that point, this is the end of the episode of the Capital Games Podcast. Tune in next week where we talk about the 2022 year in review. I am the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
And we'll talk to you next week. Merry Christmas, everybody.